Hi everybody, this is Professor Hagen with my video series on informal fallacies and logic. This clip has to do with the fallacy called ad hoc. The name of the fallacy comes from a Latin phrase meaning for the thing. Now, to give you an example, if you are part of an organization like, say, your local school board or the homeowners association where you live, you probably have what are called standing committees. These are committees that meet on a permanent basis year after year, and they have particular tasks to do. You may have, for example, a standing committee on the budget. You may have a standing committee on holiday planning or what have you. Now, there's also something called an ad hoc committee. For example, let's suppose that you are part of your homeowners association and you've decided to create an ad hoc committee to build the playground. In this case, the members get together, you design the playground, you buy the materials, you get the playground built, and then when you're done, that's it, the committee ceases to exist because the committee was set up for one purpose and one purpose only, and that's to build the playground. Now, sometimes when people are making logical arguments, they do more or less the same thing. That is, they add a premise to the argument for no particular reason except to make the argument work. I have an example here that I would like to show you, but it's going to require a little bit of a backstory.
Back in the 1970s, there were a number of multi-million-dollar research programs going on worldwide, though mostly in the United States, to teach chimpanzees and gorillas to communicate using sign language. All of those efforts ended in failure. The apes mostly used sign language when their trainers were present with rewards of some kind. And their trainers were not exactly impartial observers. The apes were not particularly fond of talking with skeptics, in other words. They rarely initiated conversation, and surprisingly, they didn't ask questions. Asking questions is one of the most important things we do with language. I mean, let's face it, if chimps and gorillas could talk, they would probably ask us why we keep them locked up in cages and why we try so hard to make them act like humans. Can't we just admire them for the amazing creatures they are? Now, here's another problem. Chimps and gorillas don't have the same vocal tract that humans have. They are not physically capable of forming vowels and consonants the way humans are. That's why researchers resorted to teaching them sign language. And the skeptics pointed out that apes have never been observed using language in the wild where it would do them the most good. So, it's not likely they would have the cognitive ability to acquire a human language in captivity. That doesn't mean they aren't intelligent, they just don't speak human languages. Now, I found a group called Y-Files that published an article quoting a true believer's explanation of this fact. Just so the quote makes sense, let me add that bonobos are a subspecies of chimpanzee officially known as Pomponiscus and commonly called pygmy chimps. So, here's what Y-Files said about the researcher. She suspects that bonobos are using language in the wild, but since they congregate in trees of groups of about 100, it's impossible to study them. And on the ground, they are silent to avoid predators.
Okay, so the chimps are talking up in the trees? Wow, where did that come from? You may have noticed in the clip that the person making the claim never said that there was evidence that chimpanzees were talking up in trees. In fact, the claim was that it's impossible to ever have evidence like that. But if it's impossible to have evidence to support your argument, then you'll never know if it's correct or not. And usually that's the point of an ad hoc argument. It's a way of protecting your argument against criticism. You know, it's not working the way it is, just add another premise. But remember, in logic, a syllogism is valid if the conclusion follows necessarily from the premises. The argument is sound if it is valid and all the premises are true. So if you don't know if a premise is true or not, then best way to start, go out and see if you can find out if it's true or not. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll have some more clips soon.